Welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I am your host, Bubba Starts, and with me today is host of the podcast Soul Impact, How Music Saved Us, my good buddy, Willie Thornton. Welcome to the show, Willie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Technically, I should say welcome back to the show, but we lost an episode of yours a few weeks back, so
It's all good. Things happen.
especially in the podcasting world. Well, and I'm actually kind of glad it did happen because the last time we spoke, the podcast was kind of just of an idea. And since then, you've been able to kind of pull yourself up and you got 4 episodes out already, and a lot happened in a short amount of time. So before we get into all the things that you're up to now, I know you had a very exciting day today as well. Why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory for our listeners and we'll jump into the current events?
Well, a little bit of my backstory is I run Backwoods Production, DJ karaoke business slash sound company. I got to add that one now. And over the last couple of years, and I've really got to be a part of the music industry and seeing young up and coming artists really make a name for themselves. And it kind of brought me back to my love of music and how the therapeutic qualities of music, and that's what the whole podcast is about. It's talking about that stuff that nobody wants to talk about, that they idolize artists nowadays that, people don't mean to, but they do. Like, oh my goodness, look at this person. He's never struggled a day in his life. Well, the reality is, just as we fake it till we make it, don't mean we hadn't had that struggle with our mental health, uh, going through divorce or whatever the situation is. So my way of putting a story out there for people to relate to.
I love it. I love it. I loved being a guest on your show and getting to share a little bit of my story and how music quite literally has saved me from starvation, from a lot of other things that could have happened. And it saves me every day, right? The Scene Projects in so many ways has become the, my connection to other creators, my outlet for my own personal feelings, right? So I was thrilled when you came to me with the idea of a show. I was thrilled to have a little hand in naming it and helping you out with some other stuff too. I mean, really, Willie, you're one of our first, students of the Scene Projects podcast school, and much of our curriculum is, well, hit record and see what happens. And then we can kind of walk with you and beside you. I don't necessarily want to, show you, uh, and for others as well, that, I don't want to just kind of show you the way that I did it and say, this is how it's done, right? It's probably not how it's done, but I can show you through my own experience how you may be able to go about doing it. And I think that's what's really cool about, your podcast is not only how it developed, but I think you're going to open a lot of people's eyes with your podcast as well, that you don't have to be like a radio vet and a pro at this podcasting thing to be curious about people, to be curious about what motivates an artist, and then to share that with the world. I think it's beautiful what you're doing, brother.
I appreciate it. I mean, it takes a love for it. I mean, uh, the love for music on both sides. I would love to be able to say I'm musically talented and I can pick an instrument like no other. But in all reality, I can't. That's why I'm a sound guy. I can't play an instrument, so I'm going to help make the sound. I'm going to help put it out there for the audience to enjoy.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job of it. We were together at Vibe Fest out there at Captain Jack's campground, a recent guest on the podcast as well, and we had a great time. Right, all things aside, it was hot, it was muggy. We faced some challenges out there, and but a blessing in all of that was definitely getting to meet you, continuing to, water this budding friendship that we have going, and to help you in every way to achieve the dreams that you have. Right. I think just having a podcast was a bit of a dream before we started talking. And now look at you. You're already way ahead of the game than most people ever get that have the same dream that you do.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and it's the values I'm trying to instill on my daughter, that it's never too late to pursue what you want. I'm 35 years old. I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm not that young either. I mean, so it's better late than never to pursue. I mean, I've always knew that I've been a people person, and this is just one of many ways that I can, whether it's interviewing you or putting you in contact with someone else, you know, like, just interacting with people. Hey, you really like this guy's music. You should check him out. Or, hey, you could relate to his story. I mean, and everybody has a story. Every song, every lyric, there's a reason behind them lyrics. There's a reason behind the rhythm of the song, the beat. It ain't just that, when them artists puts their thoughts in words, they ain't just gonna jot down the first song's words that come to their head and all right, that's it, boys. That's a wrap. That's the song. You mean that ideal may stem from that initial song, but they're going to go from that initial song and they're going to edit it. They're going to put some heart into it, and they're going to go as their way on their way. And that song, whether it was a song through a divorce or through losing a childhood best friend or whatever the situation is, that the rawness in that is going to be refined as they go through their process.
And as a songwriter myself, I think what is really cool about you know, the storytelling aspect is that, and I just had the conversation with another friend who's just, I'm tired of telling my story, right? I'm tired of telling the sad story, right? And what songwriting has allowed us to do is to put ourselves and our experience in a story, but maybe we can change the names, right? And in some way, we're revealing something about ourselves, but we're able to put something in between us and whatever that feeling was. And I know that my songs personally have definitely been that. It's a way for me to, in some ways, detach from um, the intensity of it, right? And to look at it from a little bit different angle, to examine that, and then to share that out into the world and to realize that you're not alone. I think that's the dream of the artist. And you're giving now the opportunity for these artists to tell the story behind the stories that the stories as a song that and you love. Now you get to go in a little bit deeper and to examine what it is maybe that affected that artist so much to write that song. And something really cool, and I know you were on the radio just earlier today before we talked. I got to listen to it, and even something that the host of the show you were on today kind of alluded to with his music, right? Is that going through a divorce or something, and he can write about that, but he can change the names and change the story enough that it's not autobiographical, but it allowed you to kind of work through those things. Talk about how, you want your podcast to be this vessel for artists and songwriters like me to do just what we're talking about.
My vision for this is pretty simple. It's well, for right now, it's pretty simple. My vision for this is I want to be able to connect artists that has used, songs to get them through stuff, whether it's writing a song, hearing a song, and being part of collaborating and writing a song, whatever the situation is. You know, I believe that songs are, and I said this on the radio this morning, and I'll say it again, that there's songs that you need in your points in your life that it's going to affect you differently when you're going through the fire than when you hear it for the first time. And I said this morning, and I'll stand by this. It's a Rascal Flatts song. What hurts the most is, I like the song. I always liked the song. But when I went through my divorce, that song almost brought me healing, and I looked at it differently. And that's part of this podcast is I want people to relate, not just to the music, but to the artist. Because so much of writing, like you said, it's storytelling. It's putting yourself out there, the vulnerability. Just because you write them songs about going through divorce, losing a child, whatever, being in prison, whatever the situation is, that there's going to be people that say, oh man, I really get the beat. I really like the song. But deep down, there's something to that song, whether it's a story inspired by a buddy or a story you went through yourself. So when someone like you, and me and you have talked a whole bunch over the last month and a half or however long it's been, that I don't know every part of your story, but I know enough of your story about, how you got your start, um, your journey you've had to come through to this. And that's basically what I want my podcast to be about, is the fact that just because you're not an artist and you're dealing with depression, anxiety, whatever the label society has put on it, that there's hope for you. You don't have to, oh, I'm going through a divorce. I'm just going to put my head between my legs and there's no more. This is the end for me. Because if all reality, if I wouldn't have had music through my divorce, like I never quit DJing while I was going through my divorce. I stuck with it. Yes, it was hard, and there were songs that triggered something. But through them times with them songs where they triggered something, it also helped heal me. And I would not be where I am today through my divorce without music and without hearing them songs that I necessarily didn't want to hear that were requested. So, music has a funny way of working. It really does, because just when you think you're over something, you're going to hear a song that says, man, maybe I really haven't dealt with it. Maybe I need to deal with forgiving somebody or letting go of my past, getting freedom from my addiction, whatever the situation is. Music allows you to start getting the freedom from whatever struggle you're going through.
Totally. And it hasn't even been a month.
Really? That feels like a lifetime, buddy. And not in a bad way.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was just happened to glance at the calendar and be like, yeah, it hasn't been that long at all, but we became such fast friends and truly brothers. I was smiling ear to ear, listening to your radio interview. Big shout out to you for the shout out. Thank you for that. I think it's great. And it's accelerated so quickly for you. Do you feel like it's almost moving too fast? Are you going to be able to hang on and maintain?
Okay, listen, there's a little worry there. There is, because I got a lot on my plate. And right now it's learning the balance, whether it's doing a podcast when my daughter's in bed or down for a nap, or, yesterday I did a podcast and she woke up during it and she come out and she did really good staying out of the camera. But Chad from the podcast I did yesterday kept hearing her a little bit on the podcast. I mean, I want this not so much to be professional. Yeah, I want to be professional, but I want the realization to be there that life happens, whether it's your daughter coming out in the middle of a show and you have to pause it and saying, all right, I need you to be quiet. Daddy's doing something. Or the frustration that comes in something. I want people to, them hard, gritty conversations. Like for me, it was my abuse as a child. Okay. Music saved me. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to take care of myself, if you know where I'm going with that. And music, time and time again, has been that saving grace. When I'm at the end of my rope, it was at the end of my rope when my dad died, even though he was abusive and not in the picture, my biological father. To where music has allowed me to give back. We had an incident happen at Vibe Fest, but we were able to play music to lift the spirits back up. That's the thing about music is, and I can think of a couple songs just off the top of my head. There's a Cupid Shuffle, the Cha Cha Slide. When people hear them songs, they're either dancing or they're smiling about the people that's dancing. So you don't realize it, but there's therapy there. For one, it gets your body moving, you're laughing, smiling, you know, that's part of healing. So, it just takes a small bit of love because, you can tell, like, and I said this when you come on my podcast, and I will stand by this. The amount of heart you put into your stuff, you can see whether it's doing a cover like you did the Jimmy Buffett cover out there at Vibe Fest, whether it's your own stuff you wrote. You can see the heart you put into everything you perform, everything you sing, and it's not just strolling through the motions. You, and that's where people get the most out of the artist. Is like, and I think that's the benefit of writing your own music, because there are some artists that don't, and I'm not knocking their ability to perform, but you get them artists that uh put their all into it. You can tell when an artist can relate to a situation versus just having the lyrics there.
Well, and I think you're kind of touching on something that's pretty important to me because I work with both things. And I think you can kind of put musicians into two categories, really. Like you have performers and then you have artists. And I think the big difference is that performers are going out to merely perform the music that's in front of them, right? Much in an orchestra or something. An artist, in the way that at least I look at it, right? Because this is the way I look at myself, is that I'm trying to communicate a feeling. I'm trying to build a community around myself, and in some ways trying to insulate myself from the world, right? By building that community around me. And that's why an artist will treat their craft much differently than someone who is merely performing songs, right? It's not to say that I don't go out and perform songs, but I have to lead with my heart, because if I'm not, I don't think you're going to believe the performance. And that may be unique to myself. I don't believe it to be, but it might be, right? I'm speaking from my own experience, but it's fundamental to the person that I am and what I'm trying to do when I step on any stage, that not just the songs that I'm playing, but who I am as a person. That you are leaving, however long the show is, you are walking away going, I kind of know him. And I kind of know where he's coming from. And I'm very good about sharing my story through the songs, but it's only in writing songs that I'm truly able to do that. Someone else's song can only take me so far into expressing myself. I have to have my own words and my own lived experience expressed in that way. And I think that's the major difference between someone who can be an incredibly phenomenal musician and a songwriter, right? And I think that for you, that you're much more interested in, I mean, obviously you'll talk to anyone whose music has affected you, but when it comes to the musicians that you want to have on, that you really want these artists. You want to get these stories out and to build this reputation of being the place where artists come to kind of share those deeper stories.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I want. Not that I'm going to shoo away anybody. Like, I actually have been talking to I can't remember her name, excuse me, but Charlotte, isn't that her name?
Yep.
Um about being on the podcast to tell about how she's seen music impact the veterans. So I'm not going to turn anyone away per se, but my main goal is the artists and the people in the music industry, whether it's producers, um, it, festivals coordinators, that stuff take a lot of talent too and a lot of heart. So it's the stuff that I want people to see. Hey, just because I'm out here performing 5 days a week or whatever, however often you're performing, I'm a real guy too. I, you know, uh, I'm a real person, and I deal with depression, anxiety, whatever your struggle is. And I keep coming back to that. But I mean, that's still so important is, kids nowadays, they idolize these artists. And when when that artist fails, they're like, I can't believe he did that. I'm done with that artist. Reality is people make mistakes. It's how you're going to pick yourself up, whether you tells a lot about your integrity. If you're going to say, oh, I failed here, I'm going to stay down in the valley for a while. Or whether you're coming out of the valley, or, it's how you define yourself. And a lot about music is how these artists has redefined themselves through their music, and like I said, I was not knocking a musician. I wish I'd have half the talent some of them have, okay? But with songwriting and the artistry that comes within that, there's so much more realization to it because, you know, we talked, and so I got to know you outside of your music, but you are dead right. The way you performed your original songs, even if we hadn't talked the night before, the day before, I would have felt like I've known you. And that you get that with every artist that writes their own stuff, that you can say, I relate to this. Like, for me, one of my fondest memories is my oldest son. We were going up to Boonville, Missouri. They have a big casino up there that they bring artists to. And actually, Garth Brooks was there. And he was at the gas station then they stopped at, and my son at the time pointed it out and said, "Hey, Daddy, it's that one guy that sings that one song." And he starts singing "Friends in Low Places." And probably one of my favorite music moments of all times is Garth Brooks actually sung a couple of the lines with him. I had videos over the time, but life happens and I've lost it. But as far as music, that's what I want people to realize, is that you as artists are not so much different than the people that are struggling. Just because you don't shrug your struggle now doesn't mean you haven't struggled down the road or prior down the road, or, and, you put your heart into it. Like I put my heart into my business. There's two things I can bet my house on, three things I can bet on my house on. I love my daughter. There's nobody ever, and I love my kids. Nobody's ever going to change that. At the end of the day, nobody's going to change that. Secondly, I believe in my business, Backwoods Production, wholeheartedly. I know it's going to succeed, and I bet my house on that. Third, it's this podcast. Granted, I only have 4 episodes out, but I believe wholeheartedly that this is a message that people need to hear, because there's so much people criticizing people in today's society that suck it up and deal with it and sweep it under the rug. Nobody needs to know about it. And as a man, we are even worse than society, because men don't cry. You got to bury that emotion, because men don't cry. And so that garbage, and I'm going to say it like I think it is, that garbage is a part of society that I want, as my podcast, be able to scratch away. You know what? Forget that men don't cry. Forget that men don't ask for help. Forget all that. It's time to relearn what the definition of a man is. And not just a man, but people in general. I say men because, you can relate. As a man, we get told to suck it up, deal with it a whole lot. And that, I'm sure you heard men didn't cry growing up too. I heard it. It was beaten to me, okay? I cried, I got more, but that's the stigma that I want to break. And where I see my podcast going is I want people to say, all right, at the end of the day, I saw 10 minutes of real time with Bubba, and I know without a doubt, Bubba is an outstanding guy in that he has dealt with so many stupid situations in his life that he's an amazing person from pulling through this. And if he can pull through it, I can pull.
I think that's a great spot to cut it off today, Willie. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot more, but for everyone listening, can you go ahead and plug the YouTube page and where they can find the podcast? And I'll let you get out of here.
All right. Well, for right now, I'm on Spotify. You can search Soul Impact. Music saved us. You can search that on Facebook. We now have a Facebook page. We're on YouTube. And actually, if you search it on Google, it'll pull up the Facebook page. And if you scroll further enough down, it'll pull up the YouTube page. So just, and for those of you that on your community, if you're an artist and you're in the music community and you want your voice heard, reach out to me. You can actually look me up on Facebook too. I don't care if you look my personal page up. If you need your story told, reach out. I mean, you can reach out to my business page, which is Backwoods Production. No matter. I mean, if you're an artist and you feel that you have a story, which every artist does, I would be happy to help y'all put your story out.
I love it, Willie. And I want to thank you so much for coming on my show and for having me on yours. I had a great time sharing a little bit more of my story, and obviously recommend all of our listeners go and check that episode out wherever you are listening to podcasts or following along on YouTube. Remember to like and follow us as well. Make sure you're following Willie. We love you guys. You are the reason that we continue to do these episodes, to share these stories so that they can change other people's lives. And I'll speak for Willie here as well that we're not going to stop doing what we're doing. I would bet my house on our podcast succeeding. It's already been overwhelmingly successful already, and it continues to grow. So, Willie, I thank you for coming on the show today, and thanks for being part of the scene.
Not a problem, Bubba. I appreciate you having me on here.